Hi, so this is the video of Tuthmoses I. Now, he ruled Egypt for 13 years, and there were two cities counting his regnal reign. Waset counted his regnal reign from 1506 BCE to 1493 BCE, but Memphis, the city of Memphis, had an entirely different system, and they counted his reign for 13 years from 1526 BCE to 1513 BCE. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, but he still ruled Egypt for 13 years. But there were two cities counting regnal reigns in different ways at the same time. Now, his name, Tuthmoses, is the Latinized Greek name for him. When the Greeks ruled Egypt, they gave their own names to these different places, and the early scholars who started researching ancient Egypt used those Greek names. His actual Egyptian name, his ancient Egyptian name is Tuthmoses, which means Thoth is born. Remember the scribe god that gave writing to the Egyptians? So it's all about wisdom here. So he's named after the scribe god Thoth. His great royal wife was Ahmose, and she was either the daughter of Ahmose I or Amenhotep I. So in many ways, Tuthmoses I was empowered with kingship by marrying a royal princess. So the first year of his reign, there was a rebellion in Kush. So he took his army down to Kush, defeated the king of Kush in single combat, according to one of his soldiers who recorded the event, killed him, and then had his body strapped to the prow of his boat as he sailed back to Waset. You have to remember that the Egyptians had been mobilized for about 40 years. Ahmose I mobilised an army, a semi-professional army which was paid and organised to fight the Hyksos and also the Kushites. When Amenhotep I came along, that army was still there, although their job was just to secure Egypt's borders. So he had an army which had been around for 40 years, very well experienced, very well equipped. It was nothing like the army of the Old Kingdom, which was made up of farmhands who brought their own working tools as weapons. This is now a professional army in a new world. Well, that was all well and good when they're fighting within the boundaries of Egypt. So they were fighting in the Delta area, which was their country, and they were fighting in Kush. The Egyptian mindset was that wherever the River Nile flowed was an extension of Egypt. So Egyptian soldiers didn't mind dying in Kush. Their spirit could still travel through the Duat and they could go to the afterlife. However, if you died beyond Egypt's borders, then you would wander the earth as a ghost. So what made Egyptian men want to sign up for the army? Well, it was the opportunity to get rich, because after a battle, you would have a cut of the booty. And that's one of the motivators. You could be a farmhand or a herdsman, but if you was landless, if you was a second son, for instance, you wasn't going to inherit your father's estate. So another opportunity would be to join the army. And in many civilizations, that's the same case. In our country, in the UK, the head of the family inherited the estate. If there was a second son, he joined the army or the clergy. So it's exactly the same in Egypt. All civilizations find ways of pacifying second and third sons. Year two, there was another rebellion, minor rebellion this time in Kush. So to stamp his authority in Kush, he built a fortress beyond Buhen, which was at the second cataract. So he thought, to solve this problem, I'd build a new fortress beyond the second cataract in the third cataract. And then that way we've got a real good foothold in Kush. He then turned his attention, so this was year 2, to the Levant. Now, why did Egyptian kings go beyond their borders? Well, the River Nile is a trade route. It brings trade up and down Egypt, from Central Africa, from Egypt into Central Africa. And of course, the tax on those goods all belongs to the king. Then that trade route either goes out into the Mediterranean, remember the Minoans and the Greek city-states that are developing, or it goes along the coast up to the Levant, which is modern-day Syria, through Caanan. Well, Caanan and Syria were city-states and small towns, and they were always squabbling. And those squabbles and fights must have upset the trade routes. There must have been a lot of bandits coming down from the hills, attacking caravans and that sort of thing. And that's why I think Egyptian kings had to go beyond the borders of Egypt. I don't think they wished to, but they saw their role as sorting out these squabbling children, people of chaos, and organising them into an orderly form again. So he took his army into the Levant. He crossed the Euphrates River and put up a stele saying, "I've been here." Then he hunted elephants around Apamea. And that was, something to brag about as a king. Remember, he's only ruling Egypt for 13 years, and he's already encountered all these problems. First year was the rebellion. Second year, he's had to campaign into Syria. So a lot's going on during this time. Year 3 of his reign, he has the canal of Senwosret III of the 12th dynasty cleared at the first cataract. So he must have been suspicious about the Kushites, because in year 4 the Kushites did rebel, and this was a major rebellion. So much so he had to send his army down into Kush, and this time they crushed the rebellion and set up a stele beyond the 4th cataract. No longer was there going to be a Kushite civilization. This was going to be an extension of Egypt itself, with its own governor overseeing the Kushites. And that border went all the way up to Sedna. So that was really making a statement. He started his building projects, and the most important project would be to reward his patron Amun-Ra, the king of the gods at Karnak, the one who gave him the mandate to rule Egypt. And he was, of course, the son of Ra. The first name of the king is Horus. Second name is Nebtawi, and the lady's titles, he of the lands of Upper and Lower Egypt. His third name is the Golden Horus. His fourth name is his king's name, the name that the people would know him by. And of course, his fifth name is his own name, his birth name, which only his close members of his family would know him by. And there was epithets added to that fifth name, which was the son of Ra. So he is not just the living Horus, he was also the son of Ra. So the building project was to build a brand new pylon around the Holy of Holies at Karnak. Wow, that was a big reward for the priesthood of Amun-Ra, a big reward. It's known as the fifth pylon today. Then he built another pylon further back from the fifth pylon called the fourth pylon, and erected two massive obelisks. Now, obelisks were hewn out of the ground as a single stone. I know, it was separated from the bedrock with by drilling underneath and expanding the rock with wood and water. And then once they'd actually removed it from the bedrock, they then had to load it onto boats and sail it to Karnak. So he had two of these, and they were finely inscribed with hieroglyphs and dedicated to the form of Ra as Ra-Harakti. Remember Ra-Harakti, who was created by Senusret the first in the 12th dynasty to reform the clergy. So all obelisks had the same prayer on these gigantic needles, and they were all self-standing. If you look at them, there's a base and they stand on the base, so they're not fixed to the ground in any way. Amazing. They were great organizers and fantastic engineers, the ancient Egyptians. The next thing was to build something in between the fourth and the fifth pylon. And what he decided upon was a forest of papyrus known as the hypostyle hall. And the forest of papyrus represented the primeval forest of creation. So when the mound emerged from the waters of chaos, the Egyptians believed that there was a forest of giant papyrus which was growing on top. And that's what a hypostyle hall represents. So there was a big investment at Karnak. So he had his tomb cut in the Valley of the Kings. So he carried on with the workers' village at Dela Medina, and it's known as KV 38. And he was moved around the valley quite a bit, and I'll talk about that later in other videos when it's more applicable. A yellow quartzite sarcophagus was placed in his burial chamber. Magical inscriptions that you needed to get you from this world to the next. Remember, you had eyes on the side of a coffin. They've got eyes on the side of a sarcophagus. Now that stone probably came from Wadi Hammamat. So that was a journey, an expedition to go across the desert to cut the stone, which would be an outcrop of rock, drag it back to Waset, where it was finally dressed, which would probably take 4 or 5 years, by the way, of a team at least, and then placed into his burial chamber. When the king died, he was succeeded by his son, who was also called Tuthmoses, Tuthmoses II, and I'll tell you more about him in the next video. So don't forget to press your subscribe button. I hope this information's been useful, and I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.